everyone, LauraKBuzz here. It's 2020, another year has finished, time to look back and give out some awards. Game that mechanically made me feel like most of a badass. Astral Chain. 2019 has been a fantastic year for character action games, and one of the big standouts in that genre this year was Astral Chain. Developed by Platinum Games, the studio behind Bayonetta and Nier Automata, Astral Chain has a really unique combat system where you control two characters simultaneously. Taking liberal inspiration from Evangelion, the plot focuses on a future where interdimensional beings have crossed over to Earth, and the only way to fight them is to enslave some of them and use them as weapons to fight off others, regardless of how happy or not they are to be enslaved. You and your captured ghost creatures are tethered by a chain, and while your legion fights automatically, you move around, manually attack, and cycle between special attacks your legion can use. You can also sync up your attacks for flashy bonuses, use the chain connecting you to your legion to tie up enemies, or unchain your captured legion entirely to do massive damage for a short burst of time. While it's not great that Astral Chain makes you play as a cop, and, we know what cops are like, it is easy enough to cover up all of your cop branding if you wish. Astral Chain's plot does leave a bit to be desired in terms of actually giving any conclusive answers, or making it terribly clear why their villains are doing what they're doing. But it's undeniable that not only did Astral Chain's combat system make me consistently feel like I was amazing, but the excessive over-the-top plot really helped to enforce that. I never had any clue what was happening, but I loved every fucking minute of it. Best unexpected genre twist for an existing property. Cadance of Hyrule. A few years ago, a music rhythm game was released called Crypt of the Necrodancer, where players hopped around dungeons to the beat of the soundtrack, killing monsters and finding treasure in randomised challenges, doing every action to the beat. I enjoyed Crypt of the Necrodancer, but it never hugely grabbed me. It was one of those games that I always thought should be my jam, but just didn't quite get its hooks in me. That all changed with Cadance of Hyrule. Cadance of Hyrule was one of this year's biggest surprise releases. A new game following the same basic template as Crypt of the Necrodancer, made by the same developer, but featuring locations, characters, weapons, and music from the Legend of Zelda series. It's a top-down 2D Zelda game with a beautiful art style, a procedurally randomised map setup, and a music gimmick. In spirit, it feels a lot more like a Zelda game than I would have expected out of something not developed by Nintendo. If you like the idea of a brand new top-down Zelda game, mixed in with some really cool soundtrack remixes and a focus on music rhythm gameplay, Cadance of Hyrule is well worth checking. Sequel that most successfully elevated its franchise. Devil May Cry 5. Another fantastic character action game released this year. Devil May Cry 5 took several years of games about over-the-top flashy demon hunters, brought their protagonists into a single game, added another totally new playable character, and let players go wild beating up monsters with disposable robot gun arms, magic beast ravens, and literal motorcycles. Yep, one of the weapons in Devil May Cry 5 is just a man hitting things with a motorcycle, and it's as beautifully chaotic as it sounds. For fans of the series, the plot does a great job of feeling like a proper conclusion to the stories we've been told so far, and for new players, the combat is compelling enough to make the game super fun to play. Seriously, there are few things in video games as fun as firing your own arm off as a projectile, jumping onto it and then riding it like a surfboard through a projectile minigame in hell. Devil May Cry 5 is fantastic. Best debut game from a new studio. Disco Elysium. When a lot of game developers describe their games as RPGs, the role-playing part of that acronym is usually pretty minimal. You might be able to make a few choices about what to do here and there, but most games don't let you fundamentally shape who your character is beyond a certain scope. Sure, we had games like the BioWare RPGs that give you your sort of red and blue, yes or no, good and bad morality system, but truly complex layering of who a character is beyond the scope of what most games try to tackle. Disco Elysium feels like you let a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons DM who got into the game from narrative-heavy podcasts make a video game, and the result is incredibly freeing. You play a police officer who's gone on such an intense drinking binge that he doesn't remember a single thing about himself, but has to go and solve a murder regardless. The player gets to shape everything about who the character is through points allocated to parts of the character's personality, which unlocks better odds at completing tasks, but also shape how the character acts. Drama as a skill, for example, might make you better at detecting lies, but also more prone to lying for no reason, even when it will cause your character problems. Internalising the idea that you're actually a celebrity rock star might increase your odds of confidently bluffing, but you'll also lose logic points, because that's a ridiculous thing for your character to think. The sheer scope of ways to play your character, as well as the game's commitment to letting you play through failure in amusing ways, makes Disco Elysium a must-play experience. Game that most improved on its previous entry. Dragon Quest Builders 2. The idea behind the Dragon Quest Builders series is that it's basically Minecraft with an RPG story attached. While the original game was promising, it had a lot of design flaws that its sequel went out of its way to improve upon. One of the biggest, most notable issues with the original Dragon Quest Builders was that it was split up into a series of islands, and between each of these islands you lost all of your progress. Every blueprint you'd unlocked, every tool you'd crafted, every resource you'd collected, completely thrown away, start from scratch. This took what was otherwise an enjoyable game and really broke up its pacing, making it feel like you were going back to square one routinely through your experience, rather than making consistent progress. Dragon Quest II not only improves upon this, but also adds a bunch of neat design choices to speed up creation over time and encourage working on big projects. Between each story mission, you go to an open world island to chip away at working on large projects, so at the end of the game you already have a functioning, thriving and alive-feeling island that isn't daunting to start making your own creations on. Additionally, each island you visit has a very specific, unique theme of what you're trying to build and the kind of crafting you're doing, which means that you don't feel like you're throwing away work you've already done, you just are doing a different type of work. And the inclusion of several scavenger hunt islands, which each allow you to gain unlimited access to a set resource, allow players to completely avoid having to go back and scavenge for items once they've made it a certain way past where you initially received them. All of these changes take what was a very promising idea in the original Dragon Quest Builders and make it a game that I can much more easily recommend to people. Most expressive video game protagonist. Luigi in Luigi's Mansion 3. For the third time in a row, Luigi's been given an offer that seems far too good to be true and goes off to a huge fancy building, only to find out that it's full of ghosts that he has to vacuum up. It's not an original idea, it's been done before, but the presentation, world building, animation and boss encounters in Luigi's Mansion 3 are stunning throughout. If you're looking for a silly, fun action game about sucking up ghosts while playing as the most terrified man in gaming, Luigi's Mansion 3 has enough whimpering, shaking, and eventual shouts of "Yay! I did it!" from Luigi to be well worth playing through. It's adorable, it's so sweet, it's the most I've ever enjoyed a Luigi's Mansion game. Best co-op experience. Man of Medan. Made by the developers of the critically acclaimed Until Dawn, Man of Medan is an interactive horror game where players make choices and press buttons to try and survive their time on a spooky old ship befallen by tragedy. The game features a really interesting plot, made all the more replayable both by its branching narrative status as well as the fact it supports multiplayer, either locally or online. If you've got friends over, you can pass the controller around, each trying to keep your own character alive, while playing online creates some fascinating situations where you and the other players don't have the same information as each other, leading to some potentially amazing moments to discuss after you've finished playing. Man of Medan isn't overly long, at 3 to 5 hours, but makes up for that with its just one more try nature. And I'm not usually one to recommend this for games, but I really recommend playing Man of Medan in co-op first. By splitting you away from the other player, it creates some truly unique scenes of horror that wouldn't be possible in any other medium. Game I've spent most time playing. Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, if you follow my work, this should not surprise any of you. I'm really into Pokemon games, and particularly into shiny hunting in Pokemon games. Pokemon Sword and Shield have been out for barely 2 months, and they're already by far my most played games of 2019. I am up to somewhere in the region of 300 hours played in just a few months. My nearest competitor this year is probably 100 hours. I doubt I've played more than 100 hours of anything that wasn't Pokemon. Pokemon Sword and Shield isn't the best Pokemon game in the world. It has flaws. It doesn't have every single Pokemon from the history of the series, but I really don't care. All the new Pokemon in Sword and Shield that are original to that game are just adorable. The refocusing of the plot on completing the gym challenge was refreshing. The open world wild area really helps the world of Pokemon to feel more real. The game's just charming and adorable, and I already have like 43 species of shiny Pokemon in that game, and I have no intention of stopping playing anytime soon, so of course I have to give this an award of some kind. Oh, I love my shiny babies. Best music rhythm game, and game that gave me best gay feelings, Sayonara Wild Hearts. Do you like the sound of playing through an hour-long, explicitly queer, female protagonist-driven music rhythm game with an album of really creative and catchy female-driven pop, narrated by Queen Latifah, where you fight magic sword lesbians, chase furry women through the woods on a stag, drive a motorcycle after your true love, then get transported inside the VR helmet of a cute nerd girl? That's Sayonara Wild Hearts, and it's an unbelievably gorgeous and well-made game. It's not a long game, so I'm not going to say too much about it, just look at this footage, go listen to some songs from the soundtrack, and play it right now if it seems like your jam. It is a fantastic, if short, experience that I really wish more people would play. Biggest disappointment in an ongoing series. No More Heroes, Travis Strikes Again. Now, I love the original No More Heroes and No More Heroes 2. I can admit that they're deeply flawed games. The original No More Heroes has a completely empty overworld, huge amounts of busy work, and just a lot of padding that really doesn't benefit the overall game. The sequel improved on a lot of those pacing issues, but didn't have as catchy and memorable a roster of bosses. But the idea for No More Heroes Travis Strikes Again was a really interesting concept, at least on paper, the way it was initially pitched. The game would see protagonist Travis jump into a bunch of different video game worlds, having to fight his way out of each one to earn his freedom. Now, from the start of this game's development, the creator, Suda51, had been very clear about the fact that he was collaborating with a bunch of indie developers on the game. And when you put those facts together, it sounds really promising. Oh, a game about lots of little mini games in different genres, collaborating with a bunch of indie developers. Presumably that means each of these game worlds is going to have different gameplay mechanics, and they're going to get those indie developers to help with genres that Suda might not be, particularly familiar with. No. When you actually play the game, every single level is a camera pulled back perspective, top-down beat-em-up with heavy use of recycled enemies and basic reskinning of the same formula. Most of the different game worlds and their different game genres don't actually feature any gameplay differences. There's very little evolution in the way that Travis fights in-game, and the indie developer collaborations are basically just relegated to t-shirts that you can unlock in-game. But because the camera's so far pulled back, you can't even really see those shirts in gameplay. Plus, you're always seeing Travis from behind. You don't even see the front of him where the shirt design is. It's just not a good sequel. I'm really hoping that No More Heroes 3 is better. Best Unexpected Genre Mashup. Tetris 99. As much as I theoretically love the idea of Battle Royale games, I think it's a real shame that until 2019, we only ever really saw Battle Royale games as shooters. 100 people get dropped into a map, let them all shoot it out, last person not hit with bullets is the winner. Tetris 99 not only breaks this idea that Battle Royale games have to be shooters, but it does something new with a game series that has been around for decades. Tetris 99 is an online multiplayer Tetris battle royale that takes the classic puzzle formula of dropping shapes and filling lines and mashes it into the battle royale formula, letting you throw cleared lines at other players, aiming to be the last person out of 99 left rotating T-blocks. Where most battle royale games allow you to win by hiding until the last second and sneaking out a win, Tetris 99 gives you nowhere to hide. You're always visible and targetable by every other player, and this does a great job of making you actually engage with other players rather than trying to scum out a win. It's completely free if you've got an online subscription on your Switch, and it's one of this year's most refreshing takes on a genre I thought I knew. Best game for catharsis. Untitled Goose Game. Do you like the idea of being a goose and messing with the not very pleasant characters living in a tiny English village? Well, Untitled Goose Game is a few hours of living out all of your cathartic dreams by forcing a small child into a phone box, soaking a farmer, stealing an old man's newspaper, then spinning in circles honking and flapping your wings real big. That's really all there is to it. It's a couple of hours of just messing with people, but the simplicity is where it thrives. Best game about being a drunk, depressed millennial teen. After Party. Created by the developers of Oxenfree, After Party sees a pair of friends wake up in hell. They don't know how they died, or what they did to end up in hell. They don't know what their punishment is. They just know they have one night off in hell before the torture begins. After hearing a rumour that you can escape hell by drinking Satan under the table, these two friends go on an adventure across hell, trying to drink their way out of the afterlife. Mechanically, this game isn't going to be for everyone. You unlock additional dialogue options in conversations by consuming alcohol, with different types of drinks unlocking different conversation tree options, from flirty to aggressive to speaking like a pirate, to just downing a glass of liquid acid. While each of these drinks and their unlocked conversation options may at times help you to do better in conversations, they could just as easily cause you harm, and you have to be careful about when and where to use them. What starts as an over-the-top game, glorifying the idea of drinking as a fun way to escape your problems, as the game continues, it delves into the geopolitical politics of heaven and hell, creating a really interesting mythos and spin on religion, as well as exploring who these two people are who've ended up in hell, what they mean to each other, and what they mean to themselves. It's a fantastic look at an interpersonal relationship that definitely doesn't glorify alcohol consumption right through to its end, and is well worth checking out if you like the idea of a well-written game about two teens desperately trying to get out of a place that maybe they're supposed to be. Best game that isn't really a game. Kind Words. The idea behind Kind Words isn't really a new idea. It's something that we've seen tackled in other mediums previously. People who've got worries on their mind can write an anonymous letter, put it out into the internet, people will see that letter and can write anonymous responses. The idea is to try and create a space where people are just kind and sweet and lovely to each other and help each other through their problems. Kind Words has been out for around 3 months now, and its community is still lovely, which honestly surprises me. I don't know whether it's the strength of the community moderation that's been going on, the fact that there is a price barrier to entry, meaning that if you get banned from the community, it's costly to get back in. Not hugely costly, it's a couple of pounds or a couple of dollars, but pricely enough that people aren't making throwaway accounts just to grief people. Combine this lovely community that has stayed active and supportive of each other with the sort of lo-fi music that you'd find in one of those chill beats to study to YouTube playlists, and paper aeroplanes floating through the air you can click on that just tell you nice affirming messages. It's a really positive place to spend time, and well worth checking out. And there you have it. That's my games of the year this year. There's probably a bunch I forgot, but I've spent 4 hours editing this video already, so have a good 2020.